Welcome, it is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel as we try to build this thing up. Interesting video today, I think. The NFL, I guess, depends on when you're watching this, but the NFL earlier this week released the name of the 17 prospects who will be in attendance for the draft that is taking place, of course, in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And so it kind of got me thinking, like, there's a lot of excitement, energy surrounding the draft being in Titletown. And what could be really a cherry on top is if the Packers end up, and they shouldn't do this as like a model or a blueprint to go out of their way to draft one of these guys that's coming to the draft in Green Bay. But it did get me thinking, of the 17 names that will be in attendance, who is most likely to stay put? Who is most likely to hear their name called by the Green Bay Packers? And for purposes of this video, we are going to say, for this exercise, Green Bay stays put at number 23 in the first round. We're not going to say, hey, Green Bay trades up to number 2 with Cleveland, they take Travis Hunter, boom, close book, there we go. So we're saying Green Bay stays at number 23 based on who could be available there. Maybe they're high on the Packers board. Maybe it's also an area of need. Who is the most likely of the 17? And we're going to do process of elimination. We're going to try to build up the theater involved in this video. Let's start with the 3 quarterbacks. Shedeur Sanders of Colorado will not be in attendance, but 3 quarterbacks will. Cam Ward, the presumed number 1 pick for the Tennessee Titans, Jalen Milroe of Alabama, and Jackson Dart of Ole Miss. So you have 3 quarterbacks coming to Green Bay for the draft. Why am I bringing them up first? Well, Ward's going 1. It's possible Dart and or Milroe are available when Green Bay picks, but Green Bay is not in the market for a quarterback. I would not be surprised, given that Malik Willis, I believe, only has 1 year left on his deal. And based off spot starting duty last year, might want to try to earn a starting gig somewhere going into 2026. I wouldn't be surprised because of all that if Green Bay drafts a quarterback maybe in the 5th round, 6th round. They've done that in the past. Even after they took Sean Clifford, they took Michael Pratt the very next year out of Tulane. I believe Pratt was a 7th rounder, right? So I wouldn't be surprised to see Green Bay draft a project, a quarterback that they maybe can develop as a backup way later in the draft. 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd, it's just not happening. It's just not. And so I look at these 3 names, Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart. I'll wipe them off the board. All 3 coming here to Green Bay for the draft. None will be taken by the Packers. So we immediately can check those 3 off, and I'll put the graphic up here for you. But we can go from 17 to 14 relatively easy. Next, to eliminate more names from contention, let's just look at the top 2 prospects in this draft. Cam Ward is going to be the number 1 pick of the Tennessee Titans, barring something chaotic, unforeseen happening, right? Like Tennessee having a change of heart at the last second or accepting a trade offer from someone else who wants to move up to take Cam Ward, or maybe Hunter, Carter, whomever. The top 2 prospects in almost everyone's eyes are Travis Hunter of Colorado and Abdul Carter of Penn State. And again, we are saying Green Bay stays put at 23 for the purposes of this video. Would Green Bay like to have Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter in the green and gold? Absolutely. Can you imagine how awesome it would be if Travis Hunter was like, hey, you need a wide receiver, you also need a corner because Jair Alexander's probably not going to be around? I can solve both those puzzles. Put me in at wideout, put me in at corner. You talk about the lack of consistency in the pass rushing department, specifically on the edge last year. Abdul Carter is waving at you. He's like, hey, I can help out. But no, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter just not going to be available. And you talk about like how unprecedented it would be to move up from 23 to 2 or 23 to 3, trading with the Browns or the Giants. Like, it just doesn't happen. You don't see a team jump from the 20s all the way up to number 2 in the NFL draft. It's unprecedented. It's not going to happen here. I will say, sadly, we will eliminate Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. Again, Mitch, I am on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Always appreciate all the support. Just rolling through. We'll put the graphic up again. 17 prospects coming to Green Bay for the NFL draft. Who of the list is the most likely to stay put? Hear their name called at number 23 by the Green Bay Packers. After eliminating Hunter and Carter, we're down to 12. So the next thing I wanted to do, we've eliminated the quarterbacks. It's not going to happen. We've eliminated the top 2 prospects in the draft, Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. The next point that I kind of pivoted towards were players, prospects who are in almost every single mock draft projected to go in the top 10. Because, again, we are saying Green Bay for this video stays put at number 23. And for this next layer, I included 3 names. Because in almost every mock draft I've looked at, whether it's, Todd McShay, Mel Kiper, Mina Kimes, Pro Football Focus, Bleacher Report, whoever, NFL.com has like 5 different writers that come out with mock drafts, and then it's 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 plus trades, like all this stuff. Almost all of them have 3 names going in the top 10 that are going to be representing themselves in Green Bay at the draft. And it's Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. It's Ashton Jeanty, the running back out of Boise State. And it's Will Campbell, the offensive tackle. And Campbell's kind of the outlier because most mocks have him going 10, but some have him falling outside of the top 10. But I haven't seen a single one that has Will Campbell available on the board when Green Bay selects at 23. And it just kind of falls into place. Like, I bring up those 3 names, but you also look at the positions they play. And Campbell's an offensive tackle, a left tackle, right? And I think left tackle could be a sneaky need, but later on in the draft for Green Bay. Rasheed Walker's been a good starter for 2 years. He's entering a contract year. So is Sean Rhyan. So is Zach Tom. We expect a deal to get done with Zach Tom. For the other 2, I don't know. Green Bay took Jordan Morgan in the first round last year. They want to give him an opportunity to win the job and start at left tackle as early as this year in 2025. So they just took a lineman who they want to see win and secure the left tackle job. And they took him last year in round 1. And so offensive tackle, I can't completely rule it out because of a name we'll bring up in a few minutes here, and someone who could be available at left tackle when Green Bay's on the clock. I'd still be somewhat surprised if Green Bay went tackle in round 1. I can see them addressing it later on. I released a video on that the other day. Esapole from Washington State, incredible story. Kind of a fringe 6th, 7th round guy. I would love to see the Packers. He checks off a few of the boxes that the Packers typically look for in their prospects that they end up drafting. And so I didn't have a problem taking Will Campbell off because can't see him falling to 23. I do have a difficult time seeing Green Bay go offensive tackle in the first round. And the other 2 guys, Mason Graham, every single mock draft I see has Mason Graham going number 5 to Jacksonville. And if it's not, and it's one of the few that don't have the Jaguars taking Mason Graham, he is not falling out of the top 10. And defensive tackle, another kind of sneaky potential area of need for Green Bay. Devontae Wyatt, 5th-year option. What are they going to do? Kenny Clark, kind of a down year. TJ Slayton's gone. He signed with, wasn't it Cincinnati? But Mason Graham's not going to be available. He's gone. And then Ashton Jeanty. And I can put it this way for Jeanty. It just electric, explosive runner, as good as it gets. It would be just as surprising to see Green Bay take a running back in the first round, given what they have, Josh Jacobs. It would be just as surprising to see the Packers take a running back in round 1 as it would be to see Jeanty somehow magically fall, not out of the top 10, but all the way down to 23. It's just not going to happen. So 17 prospects coming. We've eliminated the 3 quarterbacks. We've eliminated the top 2 prospects who aren't going to be available at 23. Now we eliminate 3 more who, by almost every analyst and mock draft out there, are going in the top 10. And Mason Graham, Ashton Jeanty, and Will Campbell are those 3 names. We're now down to 9. So we've made the journey from 17 to 9. This is where it gets interesting. So how I went about this next part is, and it might not be the best way to do it, it's just how I did it. I went with a couple of players who they could be on the board at 23 when Green Bay selects, but it's not an urgent need. And a lot of front offices, you look at Detroit with Brad Holmes, they go best player available. Jahmyr Gibbs, best player available. Jack Campbell, best player available. Sam Laporta, best player available. Brian Branch, best player available. Look how it's worked out for him. I mean, the Lions have drafted one gem after another early on in drafts under general manager Brad Holmes in recent years. And I am actually a pretty big believer in best player available. But we had to eliminate a couple more. We had to find a way to do it. And I think if you can find a blend of best player available, or on your big board, if you're the Packers, if you're Goody, if you can find a blend of, hey, he's one of the best players available on a board, and it's kind of an area of need, That's the sweet spot to kind of find here. I just looked at 2 players, I think it was. Jahad Campbell, widely regarded as the best inside linebacker in this class. Some mocks have him going as high as 14 to Indianapolis. I have seen 32 to Philadelphia. If he goes to Philadelphia, he'll probably turn into an all-pro, just like Zach Bond, who signed at free agency last year. Philadelphia continues to get things right. Draft, free agency, winning. Philadelphia they continue to get it right. But Campbell, I've seen him as high as 14 to Indy, who I still think will go tight end, maybe Colston Loveland out of Michigan. I don't see Warren falling, the tight end out of Penn State, to Indianapolis, but different discussion for a different day. I've seen Campbell fall back to 32 to Philadelphia. Point being, very possible he's on the board when Green Bay selects at 23. Look at the Packers. They have Quay Walker. They have a decision to make with his 5th-year option. Goody has said multiple times. He has spoken, on the record 3-4 times? NFL owners meetings, a couple of NFL owners meetings, NFL Combine, and then his end-of-the-year presser in January after the loss to Philadelphia that next week. And on at least 2 of those occasions, Goody has brought up the desire to keep Quay Walker in a Packers uniform for the long haul. And Quay Walker really, really started to figure things out in 2024. Nicked up with an injury here or there, and it kind of slowed some of that momentum he was building. But sometimes the light bulb just goes on a little bit later. And for Quay Walker, after really up and down, a lot of low points, low moments in his first couple of years, as a first-round pick, linebacker out of Georgia, highly touted, I thought really started to come into his own. And so you have Quay Walker. Goody wants to keep him around, it seems like, for the long haul. And you have Edgerrin Cooper. And Edgerrin Cooper, to me, is a superstar in the making. And if you're Green Bay, you also went out and you re-signed Isaiah McDuffie to a 2-year deal. And maybe you want to see what you have in Tyron Hopper. So there's names there. There's star power with Cooper. There's the longevity that they hope they have with Quay Walker. Going inside linebacker in round 1 would surprise me given what Green Bay has, even though Campbell is widely regarded as a prospect whose game should transition fairly seamlessly to the next level in the NFL. The other name I put down was Malachi Starks. Great safety, great prospect. Again, I look at the Packers. Xavier McKinney, all-pro, as good as it gets. And you went out, and it appears you hit a home run with Evan Williams in the 4th round out of Oregon, and you have Javon Bullard, a 2nd-round pick last year out of Georgia. So you just used 2 higher-end picks, especially Bullard in the 2nd round last year, who might project more down into the slot, closer to the ball, closer to the line of scrimmage. But seeing Green Bay go safety in the 1st round, even though Starks could be on the board, and he might be a damn good player in the NFL, I just don't see it falling that way for the Packers. So again, 17 prospects coming. We've eliminated the quarterbacks. We've eliminated the top 2 prospects because they're not going to fall to 23. We've eliminated 3 more who are, by most accounts, going to go in the top 10 or right around there. Now we've eliminated 2 who could be on the board. But even if they're high on Green Bay's best available, doesn't really do the best player available and fill an area of need, inside linebacker and then safety. So we are now down to 7. We're down to 7 names. And the next portion of this, again, Mitch, I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. We're building up the tension. We're building up the theater with this. 7 names left, and to knock out some more, again, Green Bay for this is staying at 23. Next up are 3 names that I think if they wanted to get any of these 3, the Packers would probably have to trade up for. It's possible maybe one of them is available at 23. And if one of the names I'm about to mention is available at 23, I think it'd be the ultimate dream for Green Bay. But the 3 names that we're going to knock out, let's start with 2. And it's wide receivers, and it's probably going to piss some of you off. Tetairoa McMillan. You talk about a guy who had a private workout for a bunch of scouts, but there was only one general manager in attendance at his private workout, and it was Goody. Green Bay also used a 30 visit on Tetairoa McMillan, T-Mac. He has the frame, he has the hands, he has the catch radius. He has all that. I've seen player comps that say he's the next Mike Evans. He's starting to slip a little bit. He was the, unanimous top receiver in this draft class, and his stock has started to slip a little bit. Seeing him slip to 23 would be quite the fall. I don't know that I've seen a mock that has it, but I have seen him start to go into that 15 to 19 range. And that would be interesting, because then you are talking about, does Goody, if they're really enamored with him as a prospect, again, used a 30 visit on him. Goody attended the private workout, was the only general manager to do so. A bunch of scouts were there, only one GM, it was Goody. And so if the Packers are truly fascinated with T-Mac, and he is available 15, 16, 17, or 18, then you wonder if Green Bay would be willing to part ways with an extra pick to move up a few slots and take the Arizona wide receiver. But for this, we're saying they say put. So I think the pipe dream is T-Mac falls to 23. I just don't see it happening. And the other name is Matthew Golden, the wide receiver out of Texas. And almost every mock I've seen has Dallas, the Cowboys, who are selecting at number 12, taking either Tetaroa, McMillan, or Golden. Taking one of those two receivers to form a really, really solid 1-2 punch alongside CeeDee Lamb to give Dak Prescott really another weapon to work with down in Jerry World. And I don't see both. I do have a hard time seeing even one, because a receiver for this draft class early on, I think it could be as soon as one goes, other teams that really want to take one of these wide receivers start getting antsy and try to move up. And that could be Green Bay. But we have them staying put at 23 for this video. And so if Dallas does take Tetaroa, McMillan, or Golden at 12, then other teams might get antsy and they say, well, do we trade up and take Golden, right? If that's the next name, the next domino to fall at wide receiver, and many think that will be the next name. It's either going to be Golden, the first wide receiver, and then T-Mac, the second one taken, or just vice versa if you flip around the order. So I wiped those two off as options, and it pained me to do so. And the third one is cornerback Will Johnson. He's sitting somewhere in that sweet spot between 10 and 16. Keep in mind, Miami, the Dolphins, this week have announced they're going to part ways with Jalen Ramsey, whether it's trade, whether it's just releasing him. Obviously, they're going to try to trade him to get something back, draft capital-wise. Don't be surprised if Miami takes a cornerback at 13. If Will Johnson's available there, I could see him going, but I haven't seen a single solitary source that says, hey, Will Johnson could be on the board at 23 for Green Bay. So we're eliminating T-Mac, Matthew Golden, and Will Johnson. So we're down to 4. We're down to 4. Long journey here. The 4 names left. Who could the Packers select at 23 that is also one of the 17 prospects coming to Titletown for the draft? Who could stay put? And we have 4 names left. Alabama guard Tyler Booker, Ohio State tackle Josh Simmons, Texas A&M edge rusher Shamar Stewart, Georgia edge rusher Mikael Williams. Booker is fascinating to me for a couple of reasons. From a Packers perspective, we all know about Zach Tom. He's due a big payday at right tackle. He's a premier all-pro caliber right tackle. Rasheed Walker and Jordan Morgan, sounds like they're going to duke it out for the starting left tackle gig, but Rasheed Walker entering the final year of his rookie deal. Sean Rhyan also entering the final year of his rookie deal, was your starting right guard last year for the Packers. Jordan Morgan actually filtered in and out of the lineup before suffering a season-ending injury at right guard. But Sean Rhyan was the guy holding on the fort in 2024. Will likely be the guy doing so in 2025, but will he be a Packer after that? We don't know. Again, he's on an expiring rookie deal as well. And so you look at Booker, who many have, who's the guy from North Dakota State? Gray Zabel. I think it's Gray Zabel. Booker and Zabel are the top 2 guards in this draft class when you ask anyone to break it down. And many have Booker as the top guard. And guard is still not regarded as important as getting a left tackle, right, to protect the blind side of your quarterback, which is why Booker, who even though many say is the top guard in this draft, probably going to be available, we would think, when Green Bay's on the board at 23. Maybe goes a couple picks earlier, but if he goes inside like the top 10, 12, 14, you'd be kind of surprised just because of the position that he plays. There could be a need for guard for Green Bay, right guard specifically, because Aaron Banks just got a big deal to play left guard in free agency from the Packers. There could be a need for a starting right guard after the 2025 season if nothing is done with Sean Rhyan. And so immediately Booker could be put on the radar. Draft guy, maybe he competes right away. Maybe he sits for a year. Sean Rhyan, you let his contract play out, and then he walks and goes somewhere else. Jordan Morgan's interesting from the perspective of they did try to pepper him into right guard, but now they're going to put him back over at left tackle. But let's say Jordan Morgan doesn't work out at left tackle. They might as well just try to put him back in at right guard and see if that works. So there's a lot of moving parts on the chessboard. Booker could be off the board by the time the Packers select, but I think it's also just as likely he's available. I don't think it'd be like a stunner to see Green Bay veer off in this direction, but I think given the other names we have available of these 17 prospects who are coming to Green Bay, and we have 4 left, and one of them's Booker, I think just the positions these other 3 play outside of Booker, we're going to take him out of consideration. And so we're down to 3. Simmons, I mentioned him, left tackle, Ohio State. Before a torn patellar tendon, he was regarded as probably the top tackle in the class. Easy top 10 pick. Some people still think he'll be all-pro caliber tackle. He may be. Green Bay is going to give every opportunity, I think, to Jordan Morgan for the long run. Maybe Rasheed Walker wins the gig out of training camp this summer, in this preseason, and then they let him walk. But Jordan Morgan's going to get every opportunity, I believe. They used a first-round pick on him, a premium pick. That they want him to flourish, to command that left tackle spot. I don't think flooding the room with another first-round pick that's another left tackle is going to help the situation. And even if you can say, hey, Simmons could be a swing tackle, well, Zach Tom's not going anywhere. You know, Zach Tom's your right tackle. They'll get something worked out financially. Zach Tom's your right tackle for the next 7, 8, 9 years if things go according to plan for Green Bay and for Zach Tom. And so I think flooding the room with another offensive tackle, first-round pick, I just don't see it. So Simmons might be an all-pro. A lot of people see him ascending towards that, even with the injury that he's recovering from. We're going to take him off the board for Green Bay, so we have 2 left. We have Shemar Stewart, who's just like if Green Bay could build a pass rusher in a lab, it'd be Shemar Stewart. He had a 9.99 relative athletic score. Like for a team that really, really tends to take a bunch of players who have a high RAS, Stewart having a 9.99 out of 10, it can't really get better than that. He's an athletic marvel. A lot of the same stuff people were saying about Lucas Van Ness. You know, he's a bull rusher. He's got a motor, and sure, he never started a game at Iowa, but they called him Hercules. You know, it looks like he's, chiseled from stone, and Lucas Van Ness is an athletic marvel. A lot of the same things are being said about Shemar Stewart. And it's a guy who, if you have one worry, it's that in 3 seasons with Texas A&M, he accumulated a total of 4.5 sacks. Statistically, wasn't great. Physically, you look at how he stacks up, you look at the frame, the motor, all that those terms that are, throwaway terms when you talk about draft prospects. He has everything else. Green Bay has shown in the past, with Goody at the helm, they don't typically always look for statistical production. Rashawn Gary didn't have, blazing numbers at Michigan. Neither did Van Ness at Iowa. They had good numbers. They had more sacks than Stewart, but it wasn't like they were racking up 13, 14, 15 sack seasons. You look at like Donovan Ezaraku out of Boston College, and he was a monster last year, both statistically and on film. Stewart, you don't see it statistically, but you can see all the intangibles on film. Green Bay has not shied away from taking players like Stewart who don't necessarily show it on the stat sheet. And opposing Stewart here is Williams, another pass rusher, and I think it's worth mentioning out of Georgia. And he's another athletic marvel, more slim with his frame. Like, I think he needs to bulk up a little bit at the next level. He has an incredible burst, and he racked up 14.5 sacks in, was it 3 years? It was 2 or 3 years at Georgia, but Williams had 14.5 sacks, 10 more than what Stewart did in 3 years with the Aggies. And there's questions about Williams, too. I mentioned he needs to fill out his frame a little bit. All the things you want to see on tape when you take a first-round pass rusher are evident with both of these guys in certain moments. And we're down to 2, and we're about to conclude the video. Here's what I'll say. If they take Stewart, I think it's like the perfect Packers pick. It's a 9.99 RAS score is insane. And it's a guy who the one big hesitancy is he just didn't show up in the stat sheet. He didn't show up in the box score. And I'm not saying box scores are always the most accurate representation, but to not even have a stretch of like 2 games where it's like, hey, look at this. Like Stewart had 2 sacks in 2 straight games. Like he really started to turn it on. And I know the QB pressures are there, and You can look at a lot of his numbers. Just the RAS score, I'll bring it up again. Stewart would be the perfect Packers pick in the sense that they are ignoring what they've ignored with other guys and looking at what they tend to favor and what they tend to value. Williams, on the other hand, has the stats, has the film, has the intangibles, needs to fill out his frame a little bit, I think. Great burst. I think he needs to work on diagnosing exactly where he should be at certain times. I look at Green Bay's recent history, and I see that they took Eric Stokes in the first round, right? Cornerback out of Georgia, and it didn't work out. A lot of that was injury related. We see that they took 2 Georgia players a couple years later, both in the first round, Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt. We see last year they took Javon Bullard, a safety out of Georgia, in the second round. You're talking about a team in Green Bay that since 2021, that's not too long ago, has taken not only 4 Georgia players, 4 Georgia defensive players in the top 2 rounds, 3 of them in the first round. Out of these 2, I'm going to say Green Bay, the 17 prospects coming to Titletown for the draft, who's most likely to stay put? And when we factor that in, we're talking likely to be high on the Packers draft board, use the top 30 visit on them, fits the billing for the Packers prototype, is an area of need. All these boxes are checked. And I think it's Mykel Williams, the pass rusher out of Georgia. That's who we're going with. Out of the 17 names coming to Green Bay, it's the pass rusher from Georgia that stays put. Let me know what you think. Nothing too crazy, right? Don't say, hey, Jackson Dart could be available at 23. Well, I don't know, maybe they take him. Let me know what you think. Always appreciate all the feedback, all the support. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. Please click the subscribe button. We'll see you next time.